don't know could kill you.
The Hawaiian holiday continues on the next Live.
Good evening, folks, and welcome back, everybody. I'm Tom. This is the simulcast. We're on the air now from CBS Radio and Television for Wednesday night, the 29th of November, 1995. Our pal Robert Klein is here tonight. Did you know that 20 years ago and more, Robert Klein did the very first special for HBO, back when they had like 4,000 subscribers? And he's back tonight to talk about that, his work on Sisters, the hit show on a different network, and other stuff. Also tonight, returning John Ehrlichman, who used to be a member of the Nixon Brain Trust when President Nixon was in the White House, back tonight to talk about stuff. You know, there's a picture coming out, the Oliver Stone picture, with our friend Anthony Hopkins playing the part of Richard Nixon. And Watergate, like the DC-10, is the story that won't go away. I mentioned the DC-10 because they had all the problems back in the 70s, but they fixed them now, hopefully. You know, I take great pride in working for CBS, and I appreciate the fact that they place enough trust in all of us who do this program to do it live with no interference from anybody at CBS television or radio. And we take that responsibility very highly. And we like to think that we are intelligent, grounded people who have got an absolute grip on our lives. Would you put my shoes on the air today? So help me. I left the house today, and I got to my destination, and I looked at my feet, and I said, there's something wrong here, and damn if I don't have on one brown one and one black one. And people have been saying to me all day, let me put them so you can see them, what is the matter with your shoes? And on the left I have a brown, and on the right I have a black, and don't ask me how this happened. You know, I'm perfectly sober in the daytime and most of the nighttime. And the funny thing is I have another pair at home exactly like this. And he runs his own program, and he talks to people on TV late at night. Then the other funny thing, like all offices, and I'm sure you have this at your workplace as well, we've got a fridge in the kitchen, and we keep it stocked with soda. But they're always diet sodas, because this crew is constantly watching its weight. So we have your Diet Cola, we have your Diet Sprite, we have your Diet Tab, Diet this, Diet that. So today, John Stevens, who serves as the assistant to our producers, and who is one of the brightest young people that we've all met, in fact, we will all be working for him someday, decided to bring in his own six-pack of Dr. Pepper, well, which he especially enjoys. And to make sure that nobody else drank the Dr. Pepper, he put a note on the top of the six-pack saying, these are Snyder's, do not touch. And nobody is taking one all day. They make me the heavy here, huh? Hey, the power of the water tower, but I'm not going to go down that road tonight. Anyway, this morning, in most of the major markets around the country, and you may have seen this, we have now been officially acquired by the folks at Westinghouse. And although we are CBS, the company is owned by Westinghouse Electric, and there was a big spread today, an ad in the papers, extolling the virtues of not only CBS, but Group W and Westinghouse, which, after all, is a broadcasting pioneer unto itself. The first radio station in America was KDKA to commercially broadcast back in 1920. Group W Radio and Television operates the most successful television and radio stations in America. So this was put the ad up there. You can't see the print, but you'll get the idea. It's the merging of Group W, Westinghouse there, the W on the left, and the CBS side. Now, if we could focus in a little tighter, they have pictures of all of the top CBS stars right there on that picture. I mean, there, you know, you see them all right there. You know, David Letterman is there, and the folks from 60 Minutes, and Dan Rather is there, and Sybil Shepherd is there, and Murphy Brown, Candace Bergen is there. All the top stars from CBS are in this. Every possible star that you could want on CBS is there, except for one. So we have redone the ad for tomorrow morning's paper. If you'd like to put that up, Brian, and just insert the missing there. When I worked at CNBC, we had a fellow on the air one night named Carroll Shelby, who is known to most people who love cars as one of the greatest people to ever enter the automotive field. He's been a friend to me for 15, 20 years. He is a crusty old guy. He had a heart transplant about 5, 6 years ago, and he's been healthy as a horse until recently when he had some kidney trouble. So tomorrow, Shell is going into the hospital for a transplant, and I know he watches this program every night. And Carroll, all of your friends here and all of your friends at Bel Air wish you nothing but the best tomorrow, and we can't wait to report the good news tomorrow night. Good luck, Carol. Finally, today was the birthday dinner for my friend Brian McAloon, our director, who turned 39 years old today. And we all went to a festive dinner at a restaurant that serves meat here in Los Angeles this evening, and everybody was in a festive mood. And, of course, Brian arrived last because this was a surprise dinner. He walked in, and you know how excited he gets, you know. I mean, every time something happens in his life, like when his kid was born, like when he started work here, he gets very... Why should I... Look at Brian at the party tonight. Watch this. Back with Robert Klein and your phone calls, and tonight we feature another phone call about the racial makeup of our staff, which is always tremendously exciting here. Fire up the color-tinis and watch the pictures as they fly through the air, and thanks for watching, everybody.
How fast can you begin to feel relief from a cold? Depends. How fast can you open a Halls? Halls with vapor action soothes your throat, quiets your cough, and penetrates nasal passages. Vapor action means instant action, only from the Halls of Medicine. And now great-tasting Halls Juniors, just for kids, sugar-free and with a kid-sized dosage of Halls Vapor Action.
They're even better broken in.
Sand effects are coming, sand effects are coming, sand effects are coming, sand effects are coming to your watch out, look around, 'cause we're coming, very hard.
New Coca-Cola Santa Packs, the only real holiday refreshment. Look for this display at your store.
Holiday refreshments, what we bring, a drop of Santa Pack is always the real thing. Sand effects are coming, only Coca-Cola.
On the next Real Stories.
Anybody in the car?
A young Connecticut driver may be innocent or may be full of hot air.
The wind was enough to push a full-size Dodge Ram pickup truck over the edge, huh?
Then, a suspect makes a run for it.
Excuse me, sir? Sir!
Across a crowded Delaware parking lot.
Keep your head down! Okay. What's the matter, sir?
On the next Real Stories of the Highway Patrol.
Tonight at 6:30 on News Channel 15.
Best clubhouse we made. So where'd you tell your mom you're going? To your house for some homework. I said I was going to the library. Good one. How about you? I told my mom I was coming here with you guys. Me too. Did you let you come? Sure. Come on, go find it's the mouse. Lauren? She used your full name. You're in trouble.
Alexander.
No, I told my mom I'd be home at 6. Whoop, this town.
Homework, huh?
Yeah.
The library?
You can never go wrong when you do what is right. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We present tonight one of America's most intelligent comedians, Robert Klein, who made television history 20 years ago with the first comedy special ever broadcast on cable on the HBO television network. This Saturday night, he's back with the 20th anniversary special called Robert Klein, It All Started Here. Geez, I haven't seen you in person for so long, and I used to see you all the time when I lived in New York, and I hope that you're well.
I am, and it was great to see you, too.
Same.
After my introduction, I wanted to do this, like on Meet the Press.
Remember when they did that?
Yeah. Daily News? And from the Dallas Morning News?
When when cable started, what did cable change? What did HBO change when they put this first comedy special on the air? Because there had been comedy on television, so what was different now?
Oh, I'd say there had been great comedy on television. Well, as far as stand-up comedy was concerned, it became a question of, instead of just the tip of the iceberg, you had to get somewhere in this business before you got a Johnny Carson show, a Tonight Show. And then you got 5 minutes to live and die, or die. And in this one, a guy named Harlan Kleiman, who was then programming HBO, which was a very small little outfit, a couple of 100,000 subscribers.
If that in the beginning, truly.
Well, yeah, that's right. They were mostly in the Northeast, and although it was Time Life, and they said, hey, you take a kid like Klein, you put him up and show him for an hour in a college concert like he really does it. No restrictions on language, concept, go do it. And the art directors went around to the various places I had booked and chose Haverford College because it was an old wooden theater with statues of geezers.
Philadelphia, right? Yeah.
Right near Philadelphia. Yeah. Right. In Bryn Mawr. And thus it began. They had a polka special before that, which is true, actually, with an experimental thing. But they never had it. And then shortly thereafter, it became a huge project. Within a few years, it was gigantic.
Yeah, exactly. But in the beginning, what was HBO? It was like movies, huh?
I thought it was Hibbo when I first started. Watch Hibbo. I had no idea what it was. Movies. That's what it was. You could see a blockbuster within a few months of its appearance in the theaters. That's when they could afford them. You know, then they realized they could make their own, and the time dwindled a little bit. That's what the business was like then. You could actually see an uninterrupted movie and uncensored in your home. Then they got the idea of these, it's very unsentimental, this corporate world, as you may have noticed. Years later, at one of the HBO soirees, Nick Nicholas, the then CEO of Time Life, was there, and I said, boy, Nick, it was a brilliant idea of you to have hired Harlan Kleiman. He thought of this idea, the on location, says, I didn't hire him, I fired him. That was it, you know, he was unsentimental by that time, then he got fired, so.
And what about Robert Klein? You've had some tough times here recently. I know you went through a divorce, which was not pleasant for you.
Well, it's a few years now, yeah. That took over my life for a while, yeah.
And what about having to be funny when there's pain in your life?
That's true. There is a pagliacci quality to... you see, everyone has to work with heartache, whether you're a brain surgeon or a house painter. I just think there's an extra irony if you happen to be a comedian. That time I had a show on the USA Network, a talk show that was on once a week in front of an audience. We were on 2 years. We were later replaced by the real estate seminar, the Dave Delgado cash flow method, in which Dave shows you how the cash flows right from your bank account to Dave's.
Dave's, right. Don't you love it when they come on and they say, for $19.95, I'll show you how to get rich, right? I mean, please.
Well, it's actually was a couple of hundred, I think. But, you know, you have no cash, you purchase an apartment building. You know, these things. The government sells them for $1. They're surplus. They were kind, but I tell you, whenever I look at any of those tapes for any reason, it brings back a lot of heartbreak because I had to go to work heavy-hearted. Suffice it to say that it was preventable and not helped by incredibly unethical lawyers. But,
And your son, he's 11 years old.
Allie is going to be 12 shortly. He's a marvelous boy. He occupies an enormous amount of my time and life.
One of the reasons that you've chosen to stay in New York and not move to California.
Yeah, well, I love the East, but I would actually split the time if I had to. I enjoy doing Sisters, and I would do more of them. They're very generous. But I can't be away that much, especially as his mother is a singer and on the road a lot. She's a concert singer.
And now, do you bring him out here occasionally when you're working out here?
Yeah, he came and saw where I worked at Warner Brothers.
Neat.
Yeah, see where I go, how I speak to him on the phone. And then he was at Comic Relief, and they were, you know, Robin and Billy Crystal, and I go back a very, very long time, and they all could have, it was so sweet to him. And he had poise. He wasn't just blown away by just meeting them.
Does he know yet what you do for a living?
Not quite.
Yeah. I remember when my kid was little, you know, it took her a while to figure out just what it was that her old man did, you know, because other guys would go to work in insurance or in advertising or medicine or whatever.
He finds it quite unremarkable. Well, first of all, let's face it. I love children. They're incredibly selfish. selfish and incredibly self-centered.
Of course.
They see things in their early life in terms of how it affects them, which is not unintelligent. They are, after all, helpless and must use more cunning.
And they are their own world.
They are their own world. I did Sesame Street. It seemed not to impress him. I wanted to bring him down, and I'm glad I didn't. You know, there was Snuffleupagus and Big Bird hanging from the ceiling out of... in storage, you know, it isn't the... It's like in Disney down in the park, they don't allow the characters with the big heads to talk. They don't want inconsistency.
Right,
you know, Mickey Mouse saying, "Yeah, I'm Mickey Mouse. Well, just come down on the auto train," you know. Or some Czechoslovakian refugee getting $6.20 an hour. Yes, I'm Roger Rabbit, you know.
No, they want to preserve the image. I remember one night the Muppets were hosting the Johnny Carson show, the Tonight Show. Jim Henson was there on a Monday night, and Kermit and the Muppets were the guest host. So a bunch of us were backstage. And, you know, when they finished, they'd take Kermit the Frog and throw him in a barrel, and then Miss Piggy would go up. And I'm thinking, wait a second, you can't throw Miss Piggy. You can't throw Kermit in a barrel. You're not allowed to do that. You know, we forget that these are, after all, creations of fantasy.
I was fascinated, though. When I saw my first Saturday Night Live that I hosted, the fifth show in the first year, they used to have the Great Fabog. They had these adult puppets, and that's when I first met Frank Oz, and I couldn't stop watching how they did it. But it's true. When you see a ventriloquist, you tend to look at the dummy.
That's right. That's right. We are with Robert Klein, whose special on HBO is coming up on Saturday. It's called Robert Klein. It all started here. Back with Mr. K and you on the toll-free after this short break.
Once upon a time, there were two rich, handsome princes. One was all work, the other all play.
You guys work Sundays now, huh?
It's Wednesday, David. One day, they met a beautiful girl, and lo and behold, they both fell in love.
You don't deserve her. You don't know the way she makes me feel.
The question is, can all of them live happily ever after?
Is that funny?
Harrison Ford, Julia Ormond, Greg Kinnear, Sabrina, rated PG. Sneak preview Saturday, December 9th.
This is the new Civic from Honda. More room, more refined, more luxury. It's not often that within 30 seconds you can make a revolution. The 1996 Automobile of the Year.
There are heroes, but what happens when they cross the line?
I was truly afraid she was going to be killed.
Athletes and violence. 48 Hours, Thursday.
The incomparable Tony Bennett.
Somewhere
on one incredible night, Mary Chapin Carpenter in a once-in-a-lifetime all-star gala. Brandy, the one and only Tony Bennett, Liza Minnelli, and his guests perform unforgettable duets. Patti LaBelle, Roseanne. President Clinton joins Tony Bennett in a holiday salute to the ladies Friday.
News
Channel 15,
can you put the coffee on? I'm running late.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Let's do check-in with Bob.
Basically, it is high and dry, folks. In fact, pleasant, gorgeous morning throughout the live and local.
Can you take the clothes to the cleaners?
Cool, but milder
5 o'clock in the morning.
Now, Jeanette Reiner, Steve Roby, and weather specialist Bob Hagedorn at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, the news is on at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Rosalie Hockenberry.
Receiving that diploma. It's a big day for these adults. They had dropped out of high school, but since then have studied for and passed their GED. With their high school equivalency now completed, the door is open to better job opportunities and higher education.
Getting my GED is great because I followed through with my college grade.
Learning the skills to pass the GED begins here in free preparation classes.
You can just do your work, you know, at your own pace.
It's a lot more relaxed atmosphere than school. As a teacher, it's good to see them believe in themselves and begin to experience success.
The classes are free. For more information, contact Fort Wayne Community Schools Continuing Education at 425-7653, because adults graduate too. Get your GED, grab hold of your future, and graduate into the world of increased opportunities.
Back with Robert Klein. Here's Debbie on the toll-free Ottawa, Ontario. Hello there.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Fine, thanks, Deb.
Listen, I'm just curious. Now, you've been in the entertainment business for a long time. I just wondered, what do you think of the influence of talk shows, and how has humor changed in our society?
That's a two-parter.
Yes.
If you're talking about the talk shows, that runs the gamut from upscale and low scale. To be honest with you, I think the ones that talk about syndromes and wife-beating and diseases probably serve a more useful purpose than quiz shows. Ones that exploit decadence and ignorance, it's a bit sad to see these, couples.
But does anything that happens on talk television, does it drive comedy at all? Now, for example, Debbie, I don't know if you saw Oprah Winfrey today, and I didn't, but somebody told me that she dropped her drawers today. Not in a lascivious way, but apparently there were rumors out that she was pregnant, and she admits to having put on some weight, so she just lowered them enough to show her stomach to show that she wasn't pregnant. Now, I'm sure that somebody somewhere will do a joke about this.
Gee, I don't know about that. I mean, some of these things are satire incarnate. They almost can't be exaggerated. As far as your other question, comedy changing, there's just a little lament about... I had occasion last June. I was in the New York Comedy Festival. I performed at Hunter College. And then they asked me to give this little preamble, a little talk, introducing a Lenny Bruce documentary. And I did my homework on, he was one of my influences. I never saw him in person, but boy, oh boy, his sacrifice in some intelligent use of profanity, it seems to me, was not well borne out. Today, I think the liberties that are taken with profanity and vulgarity are sad. I'm not for any kind of official censorship.
No, I understand that. And there's a point where a profane word or an expletive can be funny at the end of a story, but to make it the only word used in your comedy act requires a little talent.
E.L. Doctorow, in my opinion, is the greatest American writer right now. He would use profanity if it was apt, and so should an adult performer if it's apt. But there is a kind of, also, I'm afraid, a kind of ignorance, a kind of lack of emphasis on erudition since I've been in the business. I really mean it. Knowledge seems to be less at a premium. Mediocrity seems to be a target. That informing and raising the level of things a little doesn't seem to be interest anyone.
Debbie, I'm glad you called. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, bye-bye now. Let me ask you here. You do a lot of college dates, right?
Not as many as I used to, but I'm a good choice for homecoming and
exactly.
parents' weekend, too. I satisfy everybody.
But when you go there, what do you find to be the level of interest, for example, in the day's events amongst the college students today? About their own desire to acquire more knowledge, about their perception of education? How are they grounded in that way today? And how has it changed over the years with college students?
When I graduated from Alfred University in 1962, the recruiters from the greatest companies were all lined up, ready to grab everybody they could. You had a good college education, there was no lack of a job, and a good one at that. And what has happened is you can still probably do okay with a college degree, but you don't have nearly as good a chance as you did in the 60s and 50s with a high school degree. But the point of this is they're pressured to take more pragmatic subjects, learning for its own sake, and the arts, for example, or the humanities are de-emphasized, and business is everything. And so I think a narrower, events of the day, yes, if they're well publicized, but interests are narrower.
Speaking of your own college career, your undergraduate days, your mother and father yearned for you to be their son, the doctor.
Yes, and I thought that's what I wanted to be forever, and I went to Alfred, which was a wonderful small liberal arts college specializing in that, pre-med, and I wanted to be a doctor. A few things got in my way. Calculus, physics, biology, chemistry, organic chemistry,
things,
reading, spelling, comprehension, attendance, behavior, inclination, aptitude, and talent. So I went in for history, political science, the proper preparation for comedy. I became a very good student in the last 3 years in my history, political science, and then went to Yale for the drama school, and things worked out well for me. But when those two professors Brown and Smith, their name was. I just honored their memories at Alfred. There was a theater dedicated to them. They told my father in my junior year, this kid is talented and really he ought to go into the theater and he ought to go to Yale. And my father, who was a practical sort, but, you know, Yale? To be an actor? Did Eddie Cantor go to Yale? You know, he had a good point. He had a good point.
And how did your mother and father react to this change in undergraduate direction? And the reason I ask this is, I too was a pre-med student the first year at Marquette.
You were a seminarian too, weren't you?
No.
Oh, no?
But all my life, you know, my uncle was, you know, Dr. Jim, lived in the big house on the corner and drove the Cadillac, and we lived in the rented place, and my dad drove the Oldsmobile. So since I was a kid, Tom, you want to be a doctor. And I went to pre-med for a year, and I dissected a frog and threw up, and I went to tell my dad, Dad, I can't do this. And he was very understanding. How was your pop and your mom?
My mother was always supportive of everything. She was a merry soul. She played stride piano, you know, with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. When I came home from school, she smoked once in a while when she played the piano. My father was really nervous. He was very nervous about it. He had a good job during the Depression, but was worried, and he had good reason to be. Acting was like being a Martian. My parents loved show business, but we didn't know anyone in the business. Mm-hmm. And that was a tough one. Actors were another sort. I think the thing that won him over was his eyes bulged out when he saw a couple of good checks coming in early on. And even at Carnegie Hall, I had a great triumph and a wonderful concert in '73, and the halls were still echoing with the cheers. And a guy said to my mother, oh, your son was just brilliant. She said, well, of course, if this doesn't work out, he can always go back to teaching. I had been a substitute teacher. So it was tough, and I understand that. And I always advise, people always ask me this vocational guidance, and I say do it. I think a lot of guys like Seinfeld and Billy Crystal and others, they saw in me, who preceded them by just a few years, you know, a guy like them. Yeah. Went to college. You can be, you don't have to be some a guy with cufflinks in a smoke-filled room, or you. Show business to me is a wonderful business. It has a sordid and cheap, perhaps, side, and it spends people quickly. Ephemeral stuff that's chewed up.
Well, it spends some people quickly, but those of quality. Well,
I've been around for 30 years. It's a wonderful living and a wonderful thing if you get. But it's more merit-oriented than most industries. It's not who you sleep with and who you know. If you make a reputation in this business, it's because people like you. Mm-hmm. They buy your product, or they tune in to see you. It's not because you slept with someone or you know someone. I think favors have less to do with this business. So, taking the old stereotype, W.C. Fields, an old-fashioned way, the old repertory company, actors can't still have difficulty getting credit cards. And our unions are filled with roles of people who never work, who work as cab drivers. That's right. It's as legitimate an industry, and I think everyone secretly wants to be in it. In fact, it gets far too much attention.
And most people who are not in it know how to run it far better than those of us who are in it.
Maybe.
Anyway, it's a joy to see you again. I'll be watching you on Saturday night, and have a happy holiday season. My best to your son. And don't be a stranger here.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
My great pleasure. Robert Klein on HBO on Saturday. Call Robert Klein. It all started here. And, of course, Sisters, the immensely popular series.
Which is on at the same time this week. I'm against myself.
So you'll compete against yourself. And
use your VCR.
Either way, you can't lose. That's right. Next, John Ehrlichman. We'll be right back after this break. Robert.
How some recipes call for alcohol. Well, I bet they don't mean from a cooking spray. So I'm giving you Crisco spray a shot. There's nothing to lose except the alcohol that's in the leading spray. Crisco's free of alcohol, so the taste is lighter than the leading one. I like that, especially since it doesn't scorch as easily. Everyone's into light taste. So these days, I can have lots of reservations, but none of them are about new Crisco spray.
I've got gigabytes, I've got megabytes. I'm voicemailed, I'm emailed, I surf the net, I'm on the web. I am Cyberman. So how come I feel so out of touch?
Are you free? Are you free? Are you free?
On the road of life, there are passengers and there are drivers.
Why would you want to live in this dark world? Step into the light with Silk and Mist pantyhose from Lynx. Sexy, sheer, luminous. Illuminate your legs and be beautiful. Irresistibly sheer, irresistibly you. Silk and Mist. Nothing beats a great pair of legs.
Everybody needs some money sometime. Everybody needs some cash somehow.
Hello? Rita, got your credit card? I need $500. Now.
I'll call Western Union.
Just call 1-800-CALL-CASH and you can use your credit card to send money from home, anytime, day or night. And that can make everyone sleep easier. Western Union, the fastest way to send money worldwide.
Thursday, it's a scream at an ice cream factory.
It's a freezer burn.
When things heat up on an all-new Murder, She Wrote. Then, a vision haunts the city.
The Virgin Mary shows up and no one has any idea how.
Miracle or hoax, prophecy or false hope. New York News, Thursday.
Your favorite TV stars and classic holiday moments from the past in the special TV Guide gives a 10. Don't miss television's Christmas classics, Friday.
It's a Hawaiian holiday on the next Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. Coming up, don't miss the sun, the surf, and the sand as we take you away to one of the most exotic places in the world. Find out if Lloyd Bridges is up to a challenge by Regis the Netman Philbin. And what would a trip to the Hawaiian Islands be without the one and only Don Ho? Get ready to catch Maui Mania. Catch the next Live with Regis and Kathy Lee from Hawaii.
Today at 4 on News Channel 15.
In just a few short months, 16 hurricanes left their mark on thousands of individuals in the United States and its territories. People were left without homes, food, and drinking water. The American Red Cross has fed, sheltered, and met the needs of thousands of hurricane victims during this unusual season of hurricanes. But in order for the disaster relief to continue, your help is needed. Please send your contributions to the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund in care of the Allen Wells Chapter, P.O. Box 5508, Fort Wayne 46895.
Good afternoon, officer. My license and registration. Cheeseburger? It's hot out today, huh, officer? Maybe my tail light's out.
Shouldn't you be
carpooling? I guess you're right. I guess I am.
Carpooling can save up to 600,000 gallons of gas a year. This message sponsored by Ad Council and EarthShare.
John Ehrlichman, as we all know, was an aide to President Nixon during some of the most tumultuous times in the history of the American presidency, the years we call Watergate. In December, 2 films about the Nixon presidency will focus on these years and the people around Nixon at that time, including John Ehrlichman. It's nice to see you again, and welcome back to our program.
Thank you.
Nixon, the movie, the Oliver Stone picture coming out. Have you heard anything about this? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I know a little bit about it. Somebody bootlegged me some of the script, and so I read that. And then I had phone calls from Stone and from one of his guys trying to persuade me to be a technical advisor or something on this thing. But I'd already read the script, and it was really bad, and so I said no.
When you say bad, in what way was it bad?
Well, it's not history. It's not fact. It's not even a dramatization of history. It's made-up stuff, and it's very cruel.
So, in other words, he doesn't just take events and juxtapose them, or create, you know, scenes where they combine a number of situations, and while they don't alter them, they composite them. It's not that?
It's not that. And for instance, some of the scenes that I'm in, Nixon is referring to some murder plot that he was involved in years before. And I'm standing there complicit in you know, listening to, well, that never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened.
You know, I read a story in the paper today, and you know this as well. Stone is publishing the script with footnotes.
Yeah.
It's available in book form, so, and the reason that he's doing this, according to the article in the paper, was so many people complained about inconsistencies in JFK. So many people complained of lapses in factuality in that picture that now he wants to offer the script so people can see that it's based on authentic things that really happened. Well, now you're saying here he made something up already.
Well, that's my opinion from seeing this script. I talked to him on the phone. He asked me some questions about Richard Nixon. I could tell from the questions he didn't know anything about
I mean, what did he ask?
Oh, I asked about Nixon's drinking, for instance, and how that influenced his decision-making.
And what did you say to him?
I said that the two didn't coincide. That in my experience, and I knew the man for a long, long time,
Sure.
He'd go off for a weekend with Bebe Rebozo in Florida, and he'd drink. But by the time he came back and was ready to work, he worked, and there wasn't any overlap of the two.
You know, there was the story in the Woodward and Bernstein book where he's drinking and saying goodbye to all the pictures of the presidents last night in the White House.
Not in my experience.
Right.
And I knew him pretty well.
And would you say from that knowledge that Richard Nixon did not give drinking a bad name, that he would use alcohol for pleasure, as many of us do on occasion, but he did not abuse alcohol? Would that be a fair statement?
And yeah, I think so. He had a very low tolerance for alcohol, like some people do. 2 drinks.
And it would affect him more than others. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay.
But this vaunted research with the footnotes that he's going to publish is a kind of a hoot to me. He published a great big double ad in the New York Times over the weekend about this picture. And he's got a picture of some bit actor with my name under. He misspelled my name.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm not very impressed with his research.
Well, it could have been the typographer at the New York Times that did that too as well, so let's...
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right. Now, let me ask you here about this fascination we have with Richard Nixon, who in death continues to be a part of our political life as he has been since 1948. What is our fascination with this man, do you think?
Well, I think for one thing, the whole Watergate episode is still an unsolved incident in American history. It's like the Kennedy assassination. And it won't go away because all the questions aren't answered. So that's part of it. Part of it is the fact that Richard Nixon is unlike anybody that has ever been on the public scene before or since. And people are just very intrigued.
That's a big statement now, unlike anybody. Now we're including Washington, we're including Lincoln.
He's not in that category. He's not the boy next door. He's a political animal unlike anybody that I've ever known, certainly, or read about. And I think people are kind of intrigued with this.
You know, the public perception of Richard Nixon is that of a man who was aloof, difficult to talk to, difficult to converse with, tough to know. And that's our perception of him because of his public personae. What about you who work closely with him? Was there a side to this man that we didn't see?
Oh, sure. I'd spend anywhere from a half an hour to an hour every day with him. And he would ramble on and on about things that he was interested in. He had a very narrow field of focus. He could exclude art and music and gardening and all the things.
He didn't have any, did he have hobbies like anything?
No. No, he didn't. And he was focused on the job. He was focused on politics. He could sit and talk politics by the hour. He could tell you about this county in Ohio and that county in California and what they did. And baseball scores. Very big on baseball scores.
And 100 years from now, let me ask you to play historian. What's Watergate going to be 100 years from now?
Oh, I think it'll probably be back there with Teapot Dome.
Really?
And, yeah.
Not like Dred Scott decision, Emancipation Proclamation?
I don't think so, because the so-called reforms that were supposed to have come out of Watergate haven't worked, and they've faded away pretty much. And we're back to trying to figure out what to do about campaign financing and all these things again. So it's a kind of landmark. Certainly, it's the first president to have resigned in office, and that won't go away. I don't think we'll have very many of those.
How did he tell you he was quitting?
He didn't. I was gone.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he fired me about a year before that.
And he didn't call to.
No.
And when you found out he was quitting, what'd you think?
I wasn't surprised at that point.
When he fired you, did you know he was a goner?
No, I didn't know he was a goner. I thought he could still save himself. He was in the process of chucking babies out of the sleigh at the time he fired me. And, you know, he had some hope that he was going to keep the wolves off by doing that. But it became a forlorn hope when Barry Goldwater and some of the guys on the right abandoned him.
We are with John Ehrlichman talking about the American political stage. The toll-free is up and running. Back with you, John and Tom, after this short break.
I'm gonna have a baby.
For George Banks,
Grandpa,
this holiday season is going to be one blessed event.
Kids, you're gonna have a baby.
After another. Touchstone Pictures presents Steve Martin.
Dad.
these women are my life.
Father of the Bride, Part 2.
We're gonna have a baby tonight.
I know.
Rated PG. Starts Friday, December 8th at a theater near you.
They're in the shapes of little portals. And when you walk, they bark.
Shopping for the holidays? Come to Wendy's for a Monterey Ranch chicken sandwich. It's a whole breast filet, Monterey Jack, and ranch dressing with bacon. At least you'll get one thing you like this holiday.
Of all the eye drops you can buy, Visine is the only one recommended by pharmacists 4-to-1 over any other brand. Visine's formula gives you 100% of the relief you need. Visine, it gets the red out.
Tonight on The Late Show with David Letterman, actress Ellen Barkin, and singing legend Tony Bennett.
Call me Dave.
And tomorrow, don't miss Steve Martin.
Get live with CBS on Prodigy, the nation's most popular online service. Go behind the scenes of The Late Late Show with Tom Snyder. Talk with Tom and his guests online. Tell us what you think. Get program information. Even take a special Tom Snyder trivia quiz. To order Prodigy, call 1-800-PRODIGY and ask for the CBS offer today.
It's a Hawaiian holiday on the next Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. Coming up, don't miss the sun, the surf, and the sand as we take you away to one of the most exotic places in the world. Find out if Lloyd Bridges is up to a challenge by Regis the Netman Philbin. And what would a trip to the Hawaiian Islands be without the one and only Don Ho? Get ready to catch Maui Mania. Catch the next Live with Regis and Kathy Lee from Hawaii.
Tomorrow at 4 on News Channel 15.
What happens after a crash doing 30 with no safety belt?
A face-off. You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
We're with John Ehrlichman. Here's Vaughn on the toll-free, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Hi, and welcome to CBS.
Good evening, Tom. I'd like to ask Mr. Ehrlichman if he thinks that people like himself, people that were involved in the inner circle with President Nixon, or anybody for that matter, can look back on those times objectively, or is it still too recent in our past? People either seem to hate President Nixon or think he's a hero, but is it too soon to make an honest call on that?
The historians are beginning to get some perspective on Watergate now. And I'm seeing some of them. When they're writing a book, they come around and ask me questions and that sort of thing. And I'm sensing that we're getting a little bit of removal from the passion of the time, and some fairly decent histories are being written.
And when they ask you questions, what is it that they want to know from you?
Usually it's some insider thing that they haven't been able to derive from other books and writings and so on. Like some guy was writing a book about the Alaska Native Claims Act, which was adopted during that time. Well, what did the president really say about that? And what did the Secretary of Interior really say about that? And that kind of stuff.
And Vaughn, what about yourself? Answer your own question in terms of the perspective on Watergate.
Well, as I've gotten older, I was in Vietnam, and as I've gotten older, I've realized that you don't make snap judgments and that you see things different, and you know, there's never a person that's all good or all bad, and President Nixon was you know, had moments of greatness and and probably had good days and bad days like most of us do. But
Fair, sure.
I think because my perception has changed, I just wonder if, a lot of people get short historical people or famous people get cut down at the knees before people have had time to look at what they did or what they've done, and we make snap judgments, and it just seems the perception seems to be changing as time.
Oh, I think so. I'll tell you what I learned. I talked to all of you during the NBC days. You were on, and Bob Haldeman was on, and Segretti was on, and Chuck, everybody except Nixon, even Agnew came on. And I learned from all of you, it's tough to sit in judgment of people who work for the President of the United States. I mean, I think I've said this to you. If you work for the President and he says do this, you probably do it or you quit, one of the two.
Those are your choices. Yeah. It's just as stark as that.
Yeah. Vaughn, I'm glad you called. Thank you for a very perceptive question.
Thank you.
My pleasure, sir. Good night.
Good night.
If there was the one thing that did Nixon in, what was the one thing you think that nailed him?
I think it was his inability to come clean with the American people on a timely basis. He won a big election in '72. Very big, very big. If he had gone right on television at that time and said, hey, we've got a bad situation here, and I'm getting at the bottom of it. So far, I've learned this and this and this, but you're gonna have to bear with me now. And if he told the truth, and then he'd come back 2-3 weeks later and say, hey, we got an additional fact, and then if he'd come back a month later and say, all right, now I've got a pretty good picture of this. I've fired these 8 guys and done this and done that. I think he might have survived.
And in what way did he not tell the truth then? What did he lie about, or what did he evade?
Well, in fact, he got involved with the Tar Baby early. Within a couple of weeks of the break-in, he began contriving ways to cover up. And he was a great schemer. He loved intrigue. He loved to have J. Edgar Hoover come over and tell him about black bag jobs where they went into foreign embassies and stuff like that. And he couldn't leave this deal alone. He was not involved in it, as far as I know. And if he just stayed aloof, stayed away from it, refused to talk to anybody about it, I think he'd been all right.
Do you think that he knew about this break-in before it happened?
Oh, no. No, I don't
Did you know about it before it happened? No. Why did they do that break-in in the first place? I remember we said at the time it'd be like, Jack Nicklaus breaking into my locker before we played golf. I mean, Nixon had this election locked up, for
absolutely locked up. And like I said before, there's a mystery about this thing that wasn't solved at the time of the trials. The question lingers. People keep coming back to it and coming back to it. There's a good book out called Silent Coup. Takes a fresh look and has a whole different theory of the case. And I think they come fairly close to explaining it, but there are even loose ends that they haven't been able to.
And what conclusion, briefly, do they come to?
And that some people had a private errand, that they were looking out for themselves. It was not a political thing, but it was a very personal thing, and sent these burglars in there to in effect do a personal errand.
In what regard today do you hold the Washington Post? Good or bad?
Well, I think it's a pretty good paper. It's got great funnies.
We're with John Ehrlichman. The toll-free is up and running. We will continue after this break.
Just a glance, it happened. Love came looking for me. Get out of my
Dockers, flat front khakis.
Rebel, express yourself. Take your creativity to a whole new level.
Express yourself with EOS lenses and the Rebel X from Canon.
Passenger
on, my dog can catch better than that. Right, Buster? Guys, we're going in. Go hit it.
Bird and ate it. Hey, is that a dog? That's right, Bob, a dog, and they're going to run the old pooch to the post. And now the guy with no helmet drops back to pass. Oh, great catch! Well, Bob, when you've got the great taste of an ice-cold Miller Lite, life is good. Touchdown, doggy. I have officially seen everything. Miller Lite, it's good.
If you've got heartburn, you've got some new choices, Pepsid AC and Tagamet HB. They're not the same. One small Pepsid AC acid controller does what even two Tagamet HB can't claim. Pepsid AC controls acid 9 hours through the night and has no drug interaction warnings. In fact, doctors recommend Pepsid AC more often than Tagamet HB. But don't take my word for it. Ask your doctor or pharmacist. New Pepsid AC, the strongest, longest acid controller.
Your toothbrush, it's fighting a never-ending battle against bacteria. But add a new cavity-fighting toothpaste from Listerine, and you've got a powerful germ-killing weapon. Introducing Cool Mint Listerine Fluoride Toothpaste with Listerine ingredients. It kills the germs that cause plaque for a clean feeling that goes beyond brushing. Turn your toothbrush into a lethal weapon. Cool Mint Listerine Toothpaste, the power of prevention.
At News Channel 15, local news is our top priority.
It's a commitment you can see in First at 5.
We're your first look at the day's news, so we work to cover the most interesting stories live.
And when newsmakers or entertainers come to Fort Wayne, you'll meet them live. Plus, we're on top of the latest developments in your health, changing weather, and stories that leave you with a smile.
Join us right after Regis and Kathy Lee for First at 5.
A full hour of coverage you can count on.
This must have been some occasion.
Well, we had run into each other in New York. This was after I'd gotten out of jail and so on. And he said, let's have lunch someday. He says, there's some questions.
He's a hell of a guy.
Oh, he's a nice guy. I like him a lot. And so he picked a place in Washington for lunch that nobody had ever heard of. I mean, we were way out there. And we had a nice lunch, and we exchanged some tidbits with one another and had a good time, a really good time. We were starting out of the restaurant, paid the check and so on. Here's Nora Ephron.
Oh, dear.
And she'd spotted us. And she stood up and she said, together again. You know. And poor Ben was very embarrassed to have been caught.
I said to you, you know, he put the paper on the line.
Oh, he did.
Man, he put... And was there ever a time, because I'm sure that between the Nixon White House and the Washington Post, there was a great estrangement, you know, during this. Did anybody from the Post ever try to arrange a settlement, to cool it down, to make it?
Kay Graham did.
Really?
Yeah. She wrote him a letter, wrote Nixon a letter, sent me a copy. Said she deplored the way things were going. This was right at the time that they were really beating up on us the toughest.
Yeah.
Said she would come and sit down and talk with him, see if there wasn't some way to work this out. She didn't want to destroy the presidency, and he wouldn't have any part of it.
Really?
Yeah.
What did his advisors say to him?
Well, of course, I'd received a copy of it, and I knew Kay, and I said, I think this is a heaven-sent opportunity. And he said, no, they've never given me a break. I have no reason to think she would ever give me a break. Just be wasting everybody's time. We're not going to do it. It's a great tragedy.
Have you been back to the White House since you left?
Yeah. Yeah. Several times.
The occasion?
Oh, back in the Bush days, the fellow who was in charge of domestic policy has had the job that I previously had, needed some help. And he'd gotten crosswise of John Sununu, who was chief of staff.
A lot of people did.
A lot of people did. And Roger Porter was having trouble getting the president to listen to his advice. So I visited with Roger several times about that problem and some substantive things of the environment and other things.
Let me ask you here about the frustrations. I interviewed Marlon Fitzwater here for Thanksgiving, and he talked about trying to advise Presidents Reagan and Bush on certain press things that he felt they shouldn't have done, and the frustration of being a presidential aide and trying to say to your president, as when you tried to say, let's chat with Kay Graham, what is the frustration you must have when you feel a certain course of action is right and yet the chief executive is not buying it?
Well, it's deep, and you give the very best advice you can. You think you've given exactly the right advice, and he says no. Then, as you said before, you have really a very narrow band of choices.
Nod your head or walk out the door.
You abide, or else you quit.
Listen, I've got 30 seconds. I know you have a show coming up based upon your sketches and notes in Washington, which is out now in book form. You did these from 1969 to 1975. Where is the show? What will people see?
Smith Gallery in Atlanta.
Okay.
They'll see pen and ink drawings that I did at that period of time, and also some landscapers and other stuff since.
Would they be able to not only see them, but possibly acquire them?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking.
Happy Christmas to you, John, to you and your bride, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure. Back to wrap it up for late on Wednesday after these messages. Thank you, sir.
News
Channel 15, first news.
I'm running late.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Let's do check-in with Bob.
Basically, it is high and dry, folks. In fact, pleasant, gorgeous morning throughout the live local.
Can you take the clothes to the cleaners?
Cool, but milder
5
than this time
o'clock
yesterday
in the
morning.
morning.
Station current temperatures.
Now, Jeanette Reiner, Steve Rogie, and weather specialist Bob Hagedorn at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, the news is on at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Rosalie Hockenberry.
Receiving that diploma. It's a big day for these adults. They had dropped out of high school, but since then have studied for and passed their GED. With their high school equivalency now completed, the door is open to better job opportunities and higher education.
Getting my GED is great because I followed through with my college grade.
Learning the skills to pass the GED begins here in free preparation classes.
You can just do your work, at your own pace.
It's a lot more relaxed atmosphere than school. As a teacher, it's good to see them believe in themselves and begin to experience success.
The classes are free. For more information, contact Fort Wayne Community Schools Continuing Education at 425-7653, because adults graduate too. Get your GED, grab hold of your future, and graduate into the world of increased opportunities.
Crime Stoppers is looking for information that will help Fort Wayne police detectives solve an armed robbery. At approximately 9 a.m. on Wednesday, September the 20th, a male black wearing a red hooded sweatshirt and gray pants robbed a credit union at 1021 Sweeney Avenue. He is described as a male black in his 30s, approximately 6 feet tall and weighed 200 pounds, and he had a gun. Police have no suspects or leads. If you have any information, call Crime Stoppers at 436-STOP or 1-800-237-STOP.
How the history of this country might have changed one way or the other if he had accepted that offer, or if Nixon, instead of picking, for example, Gerald Ford to be his vice president, if he had picked Nelson Rockefeller and Rockefeller had become, how the whole thing would have changed, or my hero John Connolly. Anyway, stay now with Elliot Forrest on the Late Late Radio Show at 800-890-9990. Back tomorrow night, same time, same station.
He's a U.S. senator, a heart surgeon, and he's got a beef. American medical companies taking jobs and their latest technology to Europe. How come? Find out tomorrow.
A killer stalks a wild river.
You've got to get off this ground.
Now, Chuck Norris must risk his life to save the woman he loves. All new Walker Saturday.
You're on CBS.